We've been friends probably for over a year now on social media, so it's great to make your acquaintance, even if it's at social distancing, right?
Yes.
We are both women of the faith doing some amazing things. I mean, I just love what you are doing. I love the way you're raising your children. I got some hard questions for you.
Oh, good. Good.
But I think you are the right person to give light, maybe not answers, but to give light and space to those questions.
I'm so happy to be here today as a guest on Theology Talks, Like It or Not.
I like it. That's good.
Welcome to Theology Talk, You Like or Not. I am your creator, curator, investigator, sometime instigator, but definitely a liberator, Rev DaSaint. And for a few moments of your sacred time in this sacred space, I invite you to tune in as we talk good, talk back, talk loud, talk smack, talk life and love, talk true, talk music, talk art, talk faith, hope, peace, joy, talk justice, talk God. Let's talk.
Amanda, welcome. How are you? Where are you? Tell me what's going on in space and time for you on this day.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for having me, and for everybody who's listening today. It's an honor to be here. I am such a student of the work of this platform and of this woman who's the host of this, so I'm honored to be here. Let me start off by saying that. My spirit is happy today. As Reverend said, we are a day post-inauguration. And gosh, that week just leading up to inauguration after the insurrection and the white supremacists on the Capitol was just filled with so much anxiety in my body. And I think yesterday after the inauguration went smoothly and we didn't hear of violence in any of the state capitals, today, but just the ability to sigh, a big sigh of relief, for even if just for a moment, was so good for my spirit. And also was a recognition of the collective anxiety and trauma that the last 4 years have put in the lives of so many. And me, of course, as a straight white woman, not nearly the trauma that many other communities and ethnicities and people have had these past 4 years. So today my spirit is light, and I'm so happy to be here in conversation with you about that. And let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna go straight to what happened 2 weeks ago, because I think that event was important, and it was essential to the state of where we are, where we've been in America, and we had to see it. That is my perspective. As horrible as it, horrific and horrible it was, we had to see it, and I have a bit of gratitude for the exposure of what we saw on that day. Reflect on that for me, as you were seeing, bear witness as as a white woman in your lens, how you experienced that event.
Oh, that's a great question, and you're so gracious even to ask that. I was talking with someone yesterday, a good friend of mine, and we were saying, how would you describe the past 4 years? This is related to your question, I promise. Mm-hmm. And one of the words that I used was an unveiling. And I think, this country has been rooted in white supremacy since its foundation. And really the past 4 years, to me, was an unveiling of that, a really ugly, continual unveiling of that, which has always been at our foundation. And January 6th then specifically was, oh my God, there it is. If there was any question, if there's anyone, which there are, sadly, we know, that's still out there wondering, is this a problem? What are people talking about? Is there a dangerous connection between Christianity and white supremacy? If anybody was still asking those questions, January 6th was, here it is. And so as a white minister, experiencing that was heartbreaking. And also a recognition and a reigniting of the work that is before us, and specifically of the work that is before, I think, white people to continue to bring in and call out other white people. I don't ever think that this work of anti-racism and liberation should be done in silos. I think that can be dangerous in and of itself, because I have so much to learn from everyone who does not look like me. But yet I do feel strongly that, Black people specifically have been saying this and preaching this for so long. Like, hey, here's what it is. Here is what it is, and have been writing and preaching and singing and dancing and organizing to protect us and to save us from a moment like January 6th. And white people, because of our perceived privilege, have been able to be asleep to that and not see it. And so then January 6th was, holy shit, there it is. And so I've been thinking a lot since then about, what is the call and how do we move from here? And we can talk about that more in a minute. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Holy shit, there it is. That's my response. Holy shit, there it is. I think that is a great response.
On January 6th, hundreds of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol complex. The insurrection was the worst breach of Capitol security since the War of 1812. The siege led to widespread vandalism. More than 50 police officers were injured and 5 people died. The Washington Post examined hundreds of videos, analysed publicly available maps of the Capitol complex, gathered hours of police radio, interviewed dozens of witnesses, including members of Congress.
When the plane's going down or the building's on fire, was this that call?
And reviewed official communications to reconstruct how the pandemonium unfolded and retrace the peril that lawmakers faced. In the crucial first hour of the attack, the mob stormed through the Capitol, at times coming within feet of lawmakers or Vice President Pence. The Post used a facial recognition algorithm to analyse video from inside the Capitol and estimated that at least 300 rioters were inside the building while police struggled to evacuate lawmakers. Members of the mob violently clashed with outnumbered police and in some instances appeared to be looking for members of Congress.
I also think that a lot of white people responded to that, rather internally or in their own sacred safe space, right? Holy shit, there it is. So I told you I had some hard questions.
Yeah.
And I know your work. I've seen it. I've seen how you move and I know what you share. What is the responsibility? Because there's a lot of liberals out there who will say, oh, holy shit, there it is. But that's not me. Holy shit, there it is. That's not the framework. I'm doing my part. Holy shit, there it is. And remove themselves. What is the responsibility? Because oftentimes the responsibility is always left to POCs to do the work. And we've been, like you said, we've been doing this work. What is the moral responsibility for people, for white people specifically in this day and age?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I agree with, so many Black people again who have said, Martin Luther King, just one of them, James Baldwin, another one, that the most dangerous person is the white moderate. And Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility, who I know is also controversial in its own regard, but she actually says that the most dangerous person is the white liberal. And I'm sure other people have said that as well. And I tend to agree, because even I saw on the 6th and the 7th, so many of my white moderate to liberal friends posting, this isn't America. That's not who we are. And they were doing it in the sense of like, right, here we are. This isn't us. I'm not that. And I, a lot of times, I choose my space and I choose where I want to engage and what's going to be fruitful and what's not. And this one specific person, has a pretty big following. And I thought to myself, what the hell? So I just, I kind of got on it in a public way. And I said, well, actually, this is who we are. And in fact, if we white people separate ourselves from what we saw on the 6th, then we are never going to get to freedom.
That's it.
We are never going to get to freedom. And she writes back, well, but I'm not, and I said, but this is the problem. We have to see ourselves as the main thing that has allowed this to perpetuate and has allowed this to continue. Because if we do in this country hold the most wealth, hold the most whatever, name the things because of the way that this country has been founded, then we sure as hell should have been able to harness that differently. And the fact that we haven't, and the fact that we're here, therefore, is actually a white people's problem. And so I absolutely think that the call now, the moral responsibility, is to help white people to see that and to make that connection. We are all of those people. We actually are. And I even, I had to preach, I know you did too, the Sunday after the insurrection. And I specifically said, there in my sermon, the moment that white people think that our job is done and or that we are not part of the problem because we didn't vote for him is the most dangerous moment of all. Because then we stop. And then we can other. When in fact, we do know these people. And when in fact, these are the people who we're sitting beside in our jobs when we get back to buildings. These are the people that are sitting on school boards with us. These are the people that we're in the grocery store with.
These are the people they're breaking bread with. Let's be honest.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas gatherings. These are the people around the table.
Yep. So I think the moral responsibility there is to bring about that convictedness and that divide to say, it's not going to be enough, y'all, just not to vote. It's not going to be enough just to post. I'm so sad about that. That's not me. I'm not a racist. That's not going to be enough. That's not going to get us to freedom. So the moral responsibility is to help white people connect those dots, to really live into this notion of Ubuntu. Like, I am because you are.
You gotta say Ubuntu, Amanda.
Yes. And none of us are free till all of us are free, right? And
yes.
But I'll be really honest with you too, that's the step that takes a long time. It just does. And that, of course, is a privileged place to be in. Black people don't have this privilege to be able to take their whole life to figure out, oh, my humanity depends on everybody else's. But white people have been able to do that. And so that is the work and the reframing and the decolonizing work that is before us.
Yeah. Woo, this is so good to me. Amanda, tell me about your congregation in New York. I know you all recently lost your I don't know if it's a loss. I know some parts of it is lost. I don't know where you all in the stages, but recently your church was burnt down. Tell me about that community. Tell me about your congregation and how are you all recovering during these times?
Thank you for asking. Yes, we are a multi-ethnic, multicultural, intergenerational, we call it a movement of revolutionary love and justice. In the East Village of New York City, we actually, as part of the collegiate churches, which were new to me as a Baptist too, but we are we are the oldest, longest, continually worshiping Protestant congregation in America. So I know it's crazy. So our roots are Dutch Reformed, which if you know much about that theology, that's actually not very inclusive or progressive. So we have moved away from that and we are now duly aligned with the United Church of Christ, UCC Church. But we had a building, a beautiful stone building on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 7th Avenue that was built in 1892. Don't quote me on that. So long time, about 150 years, and it burned. It burned completely to the ground on December 5th. It was started by a fire in the building next door, an abandoned building, and it just went up in flames. And so the entire thing is to the ground. The stone facade is still standing, but we're not sure if it can stay. So we are in the process of, we kind of moved from triage, which is when we were supposed to first meet. I was like, I can't, I got to go back and be in the rubble a little bit more. We've moved from triage to kind of dreaming and building. And we're doing that through a campaign called Middle Rising. So it's middlechurch.org/rising if you want to read more about that. But we really are trying to use this moment to say, okay, what are we learning from this? What in the world are we taking from this? And the senior pastor there is an amazing woman. If you're not following her, you all should too, the Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis. And, she and I were really, even that first morning, determined to make sure that the theology in the world wasn't, oh, God wanted this fire to happen. This is all part of God's plan, yada, yada, yada. We didn't want that because we really do think, that God was weeping with us right there in that moment. When the fire happened, God was absolutely weeping with us. And the fire was a fault of human error, and in a year that was already so full of racial and economic and climate injustice, compounded with this global pandemic that is a much more difficult pandemic for Black and Brown and Indigenous and elderly and poor communities, for our church to burn to the ground, which is a beacon of spiritual progressiveness, felt super cruel. Yeah. I'm just being very honest with you. It felt very cruel. And so we owned that, and we are still wading through our grief and wading through our what are we learning from this, while at the same time, we have been so comforted by the global outpouring of love and recognition of really what a beacon of progressive theology middle is in the world, that's been rejuvenating for us. And that's kind of what we're stewing in. we've also, there's some people in the congregation, we're always trying to think about reparations as well. And there's some people who said, you know what, like, to be quite honest, that building and our money is colonized, and it was built by enslaved people. And so what does it mean that it's burned? Maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Let's burn it down and do it again. And, so anyway, that's in the world too, as we're thinking about what's next.
Ooh, I love the perspective of the people, man. I have my Power to the People shirt on because I love people. I don't always like to be around people, but I love people and how they move. I love to be around nature and compare how creatures in nature in their natural environment in comparison to people. And we are some interesting beings,
Yeah. One woman came right to it and said, you know what? Not that mad about it. I was like, that's very true. Okay.
I want to point out something you said, human error. Would you say the last 4 years, is that human error or is that will of God?
Oh, I think it's human error. I was thinking maybe there was going to be like another trick in there. I was like, no, I think it's human error.
It's, I thought it was a hard question. I don't think it's a hard question for you, but it's going to be a hard question for people watching this, because I asked this question specifically because there's many who have this perspective that the last 4 years was God's will. I live in duality. I can see how it's the both and. Saul Williams, one of my favorite poets. I remember when Trump was running, and he had a short interview and reference how Donald Trump was, and I've never spoke his name in this space, and I only can do it today.
If we need to.
I can only do it today because there's a new regime in town. So anyways, was orderly, or it was a direct reflection of America. And we were getting exactly what we deserve. We were getting who we look like, who we've been. This reality show, right? This pumping, this narcissistic society, right? Like it's all about us, unapologetic. So I asked it again. In that vein, thinking about that, these last 4 years, will of God. Ooh, that would be a cruel God to serve.
Yeah, I think that's where I land on it. I think it's human error. I really do. And I absolutely know that there are, there's people who the day our church burned and we were giving our theology out there, who would say, oh, but that was God's will. And, and that is absolutely a narrative out there. And I think, whereas at the same time, I say that was human error and God was not pleased by that choice that humans made to put him in office. I'm not also then saying that God's not right there with us and God's spirit is not still at the same time working and moving and reimagining and rebuilding and inspiring new prophetesses and prophets. So I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. And I think if I were to say, oh, it's human error and God's not even there, that I wouldn't feel comfortable with. But I do think that we have done a lot of things as a nation, white people and the patriarchy and capitalism, that did set the perfect stage for the last 4 years. And I think therefore along the way at all of those points that were moving to his election, God was also displeased. And there was also error in that too. But also that doesn't mean that God wasn't there and God wasn't still co-creating with all of the movement leaders and prophets, many of whom are behind you right now, moving us along the same time. But that is so hard for people to hear, especially those who fall into the, total predestination, camp. And it's very hard.
I will admit, my foundation in coming up in industry is from non-denomination megachurch.
Okay.
And, I am I don't want to say a product, but my foundational teaching has come from Without Walls ministry. If you're not familiar with that used to be Pastor Randy and Paula White, which is a name you're probably familiar with.
Oh yeah, okay, wow. Woo.
They were married. And so when I was in undergrad in Tampa, Florida, I served there for many years in the ministry, in and out. So I served there for many years until I matured matriculated and left Tampa, Florida, going back home. But anyways, the reason why I bring this up is because we know that Paula White was a spiritual advisor for Trump. We can get into all of that, all of the other stuff, but we're not. I just want to go specifically centering Paula White ministry and the followers of Paula White, a lot of believers, and she has a diverse congregation who believe that Trump was what we needed for the salvation of this nation.
We break and divide every demonic confederacy against the election, against America, against that who you have declared to be in the White House. We break it up in the name of Jesus. We lose confusion into every demonic confederacy directed right now at this election, directed specifically at the 6 states. We come against people that are working at high levels right now with demonic confederacies and secrecies and demonic plans and networks. We break it up and we command that it be exposed right now in the name of Jesus. Strike and strike. The angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus. From South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. From Africa. From South America. Angelic forces. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. For I hear the sound of victory. 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 I hear the sound of victory.
The reality, Amanda, is that these ministries flourish and they go on.
Mm-hmm.
They exist for whatever reason. I often, for me, would combat people in those spaces, especially POC folks who think color don't matter, you know, and all of that other stuff. My question or my thought, especially us being women in ministry, do we have a role and responsibility to combat those who are also aligned in this faith work?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how do we do it in a way that's just? Because I've seen people doing it, but it's, and I know I'm going to get some pushback around this, and that's okay. But they do it in a way where they fight just as the oppressor fought, with the same tools of the oppressor.
You want to say more there? Say a little more there.
They fight with hate. They fight with anguish, with malice, with pettiness, with things that don't really matter. They fight, and I believe we're all called to fight. You know, I'm a follower. I will tell you right now, because I know I'm gonna get some pushback. I'm putting myself out here right now. I am a Malcolm before I am a Martin. I'll tell you that right now. But I also am aware of movement and spirit. And at the end of Malcolm's life, there was a revelation. There was something that switched. Even for Martin, that switched over to Martin-like way, and for Martin to a Malcolm-like way. This is, you know, I don't know where this is coming, but this is the energy that's flowing right now.
Yeah.
I think we have a responsibility as people of faith, clergy, to teach folks how to fight our adversaries, those who may not be in the right light or aligned with God's divine will or purpose for justice and truth. What is our responsibility, and how do we fight justly?
These are great questions. What time is it? These are so great questions.
I wasn't even ready for that. Like, that took all of me.
I know.
I
know. I'm thinking about all the things you said. So I'll just start reflecting and jump in if you want me to like say more about a certain part. You know, I do think that we have a responsibility to fight. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And so what does that look like, and how do we do it justly, which is absolutely your question. I think, I can't remember who said it. Was it Obama who said it the first time? The best organizers are those that tell a vision for the future. I think that was Obama. But we can all hear it. Whoever said it first. The best organizers are those who tell a vision of the future. And I think about that a lot. So I think about, okay, what does fighting justly look like? I think that we are most powerful when we are putting forth and leading with a vision. When we are really, really secure, and maybe secure looks like asking questions and being honest about us figuring out together too. But when we are really confident that we have a story to tell, and that story being of the God of liberation, the God who feeds the hungry, the God who loves all people, the God who, says Black Lives Matter. When we are really confident about that story, because that's the vision and the future that we want, then I believe that is so powerful that in and of itself is contagious. And that our people are going to be moved into that vision. I think Bonhoeffer, who I don't necessarily love either, but he describes it something as a peeling the apple initiative. Like, if you're eating an apple and it is so good, then the way that you're eating it tells the story, because everybody around you is going to want a bite of it. Okay. So how are we, as people of progressive, liberating, anti-racist, womanist faith, how are we telling that story? And is it so inviting, and is it so contagious that is it? Because I do agree that when we are going, and at the same time, I do think we have a responsibility to those other people, especially as leaders, and especially as people of faith. I don't know that all of us are called to do that all the time. I think that's a real thing too. I think we have to be very honest about where our spirit is, where our energy is, where we're getting filled up or depleted. I feel like we have some similar energy, and I actually do get energized by that engagement sometimes. Like, no, let's go at it. Like, listen, Rev, I went on Fox News. I don't know if you know that, but I went on Fox News.
I saw it.
The belly of the beast, to be like, here we go. And that's not everybody's thing. Okay. But that, I do feel like I have a particular call in sometimes to go to those spaces and say, here's a different story to tell.
Yes.
And now I had to coach myself for weeks before I did that, about how I was not going to be combative in that space. Because if I was combative in that space, then they win. Right? Then I'm the super leftist, socialist, liberal who nobody's going to listen to, and the TV's off automatically. And I didn't want them to win. I wanted to be able to go on there and be the blonde white person who grew up in the South, who also has kids, who is a Christian, to say, and now, look, we are similar here and we are very different here, but can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is there something about what I'm saying that you can pick up on? And that's honestly part of the reason that I started my online platform, Raising Imagination, because I have read that there is a very, very, very small space in our brains. That's how we're wired psychologically, that is even open to conceptualize change. But if we have experienced prior things together, or if we can see ourselves, this is why representation is so important. If we can see ourselves as relating to the other, then that space for change all of a sudden gets bigger. And so here we can be as women, that's something people can identify with us. Here we can be as people of faith. So what is the story that we're telling that people can then identify with and use that foundation for change? And I'll say one more thing, when people are talking about just going back to is this the will of God or is it whatever? I think I want to focus on something you said, just to expand that a little bit more. We have to then keep asking the question, well, who is your God? If this was God's will, who is your God?
My God, on today, Amanda.
You said it, DaSaint, you said it.
You Baptist for real.
Yeah, but let's think about that. Because I'm sorry, but my God, who I do believe is God, is actually not for policies that do not see the human divine worth of LGBTQ people. That's not my God. My God is not one who's going to put policies in place that further disenfranchise Black and brown and poor people. That's not my God. So if this is God's will, then I think we have a whole different conversation to be happening about who is God and what do you think God stands for?
Ooh, my God, this is so good to my bones. Amanda, we are wrapping up. Oh my God, I feel like I'm in church. Yes, God. Yes, who is your God is the question.
Yeah.
Amanda, you are raising imagination. I'm gonna end it on a lighter note. I mean, I feel like it's been heavy, but it's been good. I want to end our session in a lighter note because you are raising an imagination. 3 beautiful imaginations. I love how you put them out in the forefront. I love the way that you share even now their privileges, and you share that in social media, teaching your children about their privileges and how they will matriculate in this world. Why is that important to do? And why is it necessary for other white folks to do with their children? Because as Black people of color, we are raised to make sure you are safe, make sure you're in at a certain time, make sure you don't talk back to authority, to a cop. So there's a difference in the way we are raised in this nation. Why is it important that you are raising your children the way that you are, and why is it necessary for other non-POCs to do the same?
That's such a great question, and you can sense that I'm passionate about that. And when you were talking about how Black people are raised, the Audre Lorde quote came to my mind. She says that Black children are raised in love and resistance, period. And white children don't have to be raised in resistance.
Yep.
Now we can be if we start talking about what are we resisting, but we don't have to be for survival. Okay, so why is it important? It is important because I have just come to be so passionate about this early formation, the really, really early stories that we are told, and the way that those then form our whole outlook on who we are and our relationships to power and privilege and systems in the world. And so, of course, then we have to start these conversations from the womb. We really, really do, because studies have shown us that children start to show biases as early as 3 to 6 months old. And so if we're not calling those things out from a very, very young age, then we're going to end up seeing our children scaling the wall of the Capitol holding a Bible one day. So it's important because I have seen too, a generation, myself included, I was raised by very, very loving Christian parents, but we didn't talk about specifically race and privilege and class. And so I saw that it wasn't until other people, other Black people, other people of color were saying to me and teaching me, in my early 20s, hey, this is a real thing. And you're either actively working against it or you're perpetuating it. And sure, by that time, I was like, okay, I want to learn all the things and I want to do it. But I thought to myself, what would it look like if we could start doing this much, much earlier? And I also love June Jordan's quote when she says that children are the way the world begins again and again. And I say that quote all the time when I talk about this work that we have to do to raise the young generation, because we do have that opportunity. Every new child who comes into the world, we have the opportunity to allow them to have the tools to grow their racial stamina, to grow their moral imagination, or we can just continue to let things be status quo. And we know that that is not working well. We have seen that that is not working well. So I feel a real call for it. I also feel like, one of the ways that whiteness works in this world is that if we don't feel like we have all the answers, or if we don't know it completely well, we're not going to do it at all. And so white parents are scared of this conversation, which again is a wide privilege. But I am just attempting to say, hey, I don't have all the answers either, but I'm also not going to be silent about it. And I am going to say to my kids, oh, actually, we're not going to play with toy guns. Why not? Because 12-year-old Black kids, when they play with toy guns, get shot. And so part of the way that we are learning to live in community together is to recognize that even playing with a gun in the park is a privilege that white kids have that Black kids don't. And we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And we're not going to focus on either just like a saviorism. Like that's the piece that I'm really trying to focus on right now. Like, it's not about us saving anybody. It's just about us working together as co-laborers in this movement of liberation. So talking about that with 6-year-olds and 4-year-olds is so much fun, y'all. So much fun.
Amanda, it was such a privilege. Oh my goodness. I wish we can talk some more, but I think we got some good nooks and crannies for folks to really wrestle with, and think about as they think through their own theology, their own being, and their own process in this world, and how we are going to navigate the newness of this new inauguration, this space, and really what Biden and Harris is offering us as a nation to heal, I think
Yes.
there's a lot of healing that needs to be done, individually as well as collectively. Blessings upon you. Before we leave, can you tell the people where they can find you, follow you, all of your network, so they can get in contact?
Yes, thank you so much. Raising Imagination is my Instagram handle, at Raising Imagination, one word. And the church where I work is Middle Church. Their handles on Twitter and Instagram and all the things are at Middle Church, or middlechurch.org.
You've tuned in to another episode of Theology Talks You Like or Not. We were sitting with Amanda, Raising Imagination. If you haven't heard what she do and all that she's about, go ahead and follow her. And we will see you next time on TTYL or Not. Peace.
This season of TTYL or Not is being funded by Independence Public Media Foundation and supported by Good Pitch, Doc Society, and Love Now Media. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, TTYL or Not, and click on notification for updated episodes.